guys, Veronica here. So I want to talk for a minute about your overwintered peppers, because if you were lucky enough to grow peppers last year and you pulled them out of the ground and you put them in a pot to go in your greenhouse or inside your house while it was freezing cold and snowing outside, then you might have ended up with a pepper that looked something like this. And this is a best case scenario pepper here. For the rest of us, most peppers are going to look like this table in front of me. And what I've seen a lot of pictures lately is this pepper dead. There's a few ways to tell. First thing I'd recommend is going to the base of your stems and just lightly scratching with your thumbnail. If the pepper is still alive, if you've watered it all winter, sporadically, just to keep enough to keep it alive, then you'll see some green on the base. And it looks like this side doesn't have any, but I come over to this stem and you can see right in there, there's some green on this base. That means this pepper is still alive. And what's going to happen with that as it starts to warm up is that you're going to end up getting something that looks a little bit like this, where the entire stem starts to green up again. And then you'll even start to see leaf terminals come out. I have a better example of that. Let's see. Who is budding? This one looked just like this one a couple of weeks ago. This little chili tapine. And it's just starting to get leaves. So don't despair if your pepper lost all of its leaves over the winter. Totally normal if that happens, especially if you're keeping it outdoors in a greenhouse that's not heated like I do. Even if you're keeping it inside the house, sometimes they just lose their leaves. So again, sometimes they'll stay like this, and sometimes they look like this. Now what I like to do with the ones that look brown and crunchy is to decide if they're worth the real estate. And the way that I go about doing that is I'll just basically go in and I will cut off one of these branches. Now we're looking inside, the inside of this branch, to see if there's any green or not. And if there's no green, then this plant is a goner. But again, this was the one I scratched earlier. So if I cut off of the branch that I scratched, I'm not going to go too low. Well, the green on that one is low, so we'll choose a different one. On ones like this, where you can see there's green and there's brown, I'll just go in at an angle like my other pepper pruning technique, and I'll just cut those brown parts off. They're not really harming the plant, but it doesn't really make sense to have them there either. So just clean it up a little. Same with this guy right here. You can see some leftover brown branches from last year, but again, there's a lot of green on this stem down here. So we'll just go in and cut out everything that's dead. You can see on that one I just cut, I mean, the branch is green, but also the inside of that branch is green across the cut and not just the outside. So this guy is still alive. He will still get water and a place on the shelf. And we're just going to clean off all of the dead stuff. Now, how will this plant grow now that you've cut it down to twigs? What it's going to end up looking like in some cases, you'll get something like this. And this one got pruned a little bit at the end of last season. You can kind of tell by the branching structure on the top. We wanted to keep this guy a little smaller because it was pretty massive when I pulled it out of the ground. But you can see there's a lot of new growth coming in down there. And so I'll just go in, and with this, once it starts turning green, your pruning technique is the same as pruning the seedlings, you guys. All you do is you go in and you cut above the next new growth where you want that to bush out more. So anywhere that I see new growth coming out and it's starting to take on the shape that I'd like, I'll just prune out the pieces above that and encourage those leaves to grow. So this is a massive post-winter haircut for these peppers, but they look a lot better afterwards. There's less decayed parts to just sit around on your plant and potentially cause problems. You can see where the growth is coming out. I mean, I just like things to look nice. So I'll just prune all of those out. There's a little new growth right there, so I'm going to go above it. Again, you want to try and keep as much of the old growth as possible. Unless it's just really tall and you can see that there's lots of green and you can find spots to cut it. I tend to keep as much that's green as I possibly can on these plants. The main reason that I keep plants for more than a year or two, preferably in the ground, but it kind of freezes here on the ground, so we have weird winters, and it's not always possible, but the main reason that I do it is because you're getting a much stronger start when you put this back out in the garden. So the root structure is going to be stronger than a first-year plant. The main growth part, depending on how much survived, will be stronger. You have like a much stockier main stem. As you can see, we're starting here with an end of the season diameter of stem. So here's another weird example. This guy looks totally dead. And these leaves just came in the last probably 2 weeks. So don't despair if you have, something on a shelf or in a greenhouse right now that looks like this. It could grow from the base wherever it's basically still green is going to be where it starts to sprout again from. And so with this guy, what I'll do is I'll start cutting down these branches, and you can always cut more, and see if there's anything green inside. Sometimes they don't look super green inside, but you can see just the smallest hint. I don't even think you're going to be able to see that one. There's just like the smallest hint of green, and so then I'll leave it at that height. But if it snaps off very easily and feels dry and brittle, you can pretty much rest assured that that branch is dead, and you can just hack it off. So this one will grow from the base, and then as it grows larger, I may trim up from the base so there's not a bunch of leaves touching the soil. Basically, every single plant is different, and there's not really like a do it exactly this way for all of the plants. You kind of have to look at that plant and assess, how am I going to prune it? But I recommend not starting really pruning these plants if you've saved an overwintered plants. Like, don't start pruning them really hard until you start to see new growth, because that will indicate where you should cut it, how alive it still is, and just kind of give you an idea of the overall shape that it's willing to take. So this guy, you can see there's a couple of branches here in the middle. This one looks like it might still have a little bit of green on it, so I'm not even going to chop that back. But this other smaller one definitely looks dead, so I'll cut that down to the soil level and pop that leaf off. I have bugs somewhere. What else? I mean, that's basically it. It's just a plant by plant sort of process where you look at your plant and you assess, what's alive, what's not. And then from there, you just kind of go in and you cut. And sometimes you can even see there's a line of demarcation here that you can see. And so you see where it turns from green to brown. And that's where I would normally cut it. I'd cut it probably just above the green part in the brown space, because that's already closed. You can see the inside of this is green. But that's already a dead part of the plant. If you can avoid making fresh wounds on the green parts, that's definitely suggestible, because then the plant doesn't have to work as hard to heal itself, and it can work on putting out leaves instead. So that's basically it. I have a lot of older peppers in here to prune still. They're going to be going out in the garden soon. Hopefully you guys on the East Coast and in the northern areas, your snow melts soon. I know it's probably not super fun to watch somebody dancing around in the sunshine gardening if you're under a couple feet of snow, but fingers crossed you will be well on your way in the next week or so, hopefully. I saw a couple of catalogs saying that they're shipping out to your zones in 4 to 6 now. So zones 4, 5, and 6 are getting in the next week or two. So if the nurseries are thinking that the weather's gonna get better for you, then I am too. That's about it. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. As always, if you are interested in all of the other stuff I do that I don't make YouTube videos about, follow me on Instagram at Flavor Kit. It's a lot of cooking, a lot of gardening, a lot of cute baby farm animals. And hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of this, because there's lots of gardening that's going to be happening in the next few weeks / months / years. So a lot to learn. But until next time, happy gardening and pruning. Okay, bye.